Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK-Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
Yo, what up? It's Paranoid. And today we're going to be getting into the latest Monkey Watch news. There has been an update. You guys are going to love it. But what we're going to love even more is that we're putting together two of the heavy hitters, Doenut and David Charles Plate, that I do shows with every week on Sync Tank. Guys, thank you for both showing up. And we're going to rock tonight. This is going to be such a good one.
What up?
So I guess plugs up first for anyone that's not familiar with David. David, do your plugs. You know what they all are at this point.
My plugging myself.
Yeah, do the whole thing, man. Sell yourself.
I'm the world's leading pioneer in album film syzygy. So pairing. Since I was in junior high, I believe it's been about 28 years. I've been dedicating like most of my free time towards finding resonance between specific albums and specific films. And so on the syncbook.com, I have like over 200 of different pairings that of these correspondences for free streaming and download. On my Twitter, if you go to my highlights, I have some that aren't on here, and just the same anomaly though. So it's just, this is what I do, among other things. But this is my
I'm just being careful on your Twitter page because I don't know what's gonna pop up as I scroll through. And
my highlights, it should be okay, but if you jump into the videos, then you might end up with who knows. But yeah, totally. This is YouTube. No, we're on Rumble though, right? Or are we on both? What are we?
We're on everything.
Okay, cool.
So we're minding our P's and Q's and not talking about certain things.
What got you into syncing music albums with movies? Because I knew that this was a Pink Floyd thing with Wizard of Oz, The Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, so my brother, who's like almost twice my age, when I was much younger, he told me about Dark Side of the Moon, The Wizard of Oz. He didn't show it to me, but then he told me about it, and then I went and I did it with the third roar and the whole thing. And then we watched Pink Floyd's The Wall together for the first time shortly after that. And I was like, wait, so they did a movie that's basically a giant music video. And then I went from there. I just got like every Pink Floyd album. And then I was like, okay, so they started with soundtracks. So I'm like, okay, so more and more, the album more with the film more. And then Obscured by Clouds with The Valley. And so like I paired The Valley, this French film, with its soundtrack of Pink Floyd called Obscured by Clouds. and I was amazed by what happened. So I was just like, I became obsessed. So it just started with like every Pink Floyd album, and then I went from there and discovered different anomalies. So you know, everything will sync with everything to some degree. That's just the nature of things. But I'm like fascinated with those points where it really definitely crosses a line, and that can be, you know, demonstrated to people. And so it's almost like, you know, I think ultimately, like when it comes to the phenomenon of synchronicity as it exists in nature, like you could find the same thing in a leaf. It's just like here, it's hard to tell a lot of the time where the, like, especially when there's backstory that syntax wise I may not have known to begin with, if after the fact I find out about that there's more to like it, like the creators of a film and the creators of the music, and like how they actually like might know each other or have these kind of relationships and stuff. So I have to like, you know, consider intentionality in certain cases. So like I don't always know, like, or really I never ultimately know, you know, the degree of that line, you know, like it could be a line in the sand. I'm not really sure, you know. Yeah.
There's so many. I could keep scrolling more and more and more. There's so many on here, man.
Yeah.
Have you added up the hours of sync films that you've got collectively?
No. And this is not even, this is what's on this website is not even like near what I actually have in my hard drives. Like this is just like more of like the cream of the crop kind of stuff, you know.
I didn't even know there was an art of the deal. Oh, this is the Funny or Die one. Okay.
Yeah. With Roger Waters, Is This the Life You Really Want?
Wow.
So,
and you've done
I love all this work.
And you've done a big documentary as well with Back to the Future. That was like millions and millions of views.
All this stuff is kind of longer stories. Yeah. But yeah, so Joe Alexander, who had done Back to the Future Predicts 9/11, like that came into being in Santa Cruz where I live. So he basically, he was a basketball player. I don't know if he cares if I share everything at this point, but I think he's retired now, so who knows. But he was playing, he used to play for the Chicago Bulls once upon a time. And he had a leg injury, a knee injury at a certain point, and he recuperated from that, and he was playing, and they gave him options, so like a list of places that he could play in the world professionally. And in Santa Cruz, he could play not for the NBA, but for the Santa Cruz Warriors if he came here. So he contacted me because we were both in the sync community, and he was like, "Look, if I come out to Santa Cruz, I want to put a film together. Do you think that you could contribute?" I didn't end up contributing in those ways. Like he would come to my place, and I would show him these sync pairings and stuff. But he sat in on a couple sessions with me and my rabbi while we were looking at 9/11 in the Zohar. So I spent 10 years transcribing Zohar with a rabbi. He sat in on specific sessions where like I had brought something that was referenced by Leo Zagami to my teacher, and it took us like 2.5 years to transcribe these two sections of the Zohar that give the exact date of 9/11. And in the commentary from the 16th century gives a full description of the significance of that event and all this stuff. So it's not, ultimately for me and for people who know, it's not actually a debatable point that 9/11 was predicted like as early as the 12th century and then expounded upon in like the 16th century. And then the 18th century, there was a rabbi who narrowed down and said, this is the date. So even though it gives a date in the original text, there was an incongruency because of what that date is in relationship to Shabbat. So it wouldn't ever land on the day that it gave. So like, if you know about like a cult, like mystery schools will often go by the most recent determination. So like you'd think that maybe the earliest would have the most authority, but it actually goes the other way. So in the 18th century, they said the way it translates into the Gregorian calendar for the day that these two strongholds are destroyed, and it has all this, it's the only prophecy that exists in the Zohar, and it's only 2 sections. So when it gives the equivalent date in the Hebrew calendar, which appears at random in the Hebrew calendar, September 11th, 2001. So for us. So like, and then it goes on to explain that, so Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the temple, is always attributed to the 9th day of the 11th month in the Hebrew calendar. So that's what Tisha B'Av means, is, you know, so is 9/11 basically. So we have the reversal of that in a sense. So it's like the whole world gets to experience what the Jews experienced 2,000 years ago and beyond. So that's like the idea. So it's a lot to get into, but I think we're going to talk more about Kubrick and stuff. But yeah, so.
Well, yeah, my rabbi was showing me how even a lot of the hostage situation, what's going on, is also connected with the releases in the Torah and the scriptures. I'm not sure so much with Zohar and the Kabbalah and whatnot, but he was showing how the days and all that is all connected through gematria, which I thought was like mind blowing what he was talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, totally. So if Joe had listened to me with my advice for his video, he wouldn't have done well. Like his video went viral because of the way he did it, and he was almost doing like a satire on internet conspiracy videos, but he's so freaking brilliant in his delivery that this, it took off. Also the timing, because when the time that Back to the Future predicted, like, and people were searching online, this video came up like crazy. So he's even gotten like Joseph Gordon-Levitt responding to it and all these kind of things. But my advice to him was to not do it so conspiratorial, because that's not necessarily like how we talked about this stuff necessarily. So like it was more like just, synchronicity, but he was like, but that's not, he knew how to sensationalize it, and he did a really good job with that. So I'm glad he didn't listen to me. When he showed me this video before he released it and what he's working on, I was like, oh man, no, you should, be more nuanced with it or whatever. It's like, that's my style. That's why I'm not as well known as he is.
Well, there's definitely a connection to that movie
right.
with what's going on with Back to the Future, time traveling, and even Donnie Darko. It just seems to be a big connection, and I think that Southland Tales is connected to the whole thing as well.
Right. Well, there's two sections to the Zohar prophecy, and the first one is much smaller than the other and almost reads like fanatical if you look at it in today's terms. Like, even though Israel isn't a nation until well into the future, its treatment of it is like Israel will act mightily and all this stuff. Whereas the second section is much longer, more in depth, and then you have the commentary to boot that really explains it from Ramak. And so that's like. I don't know if what I transcribed with the commentary has ever been transcribed into English by anybody else. Like, I know that his other work, the Pardes Femonin, Garden of Pomegranates, has been transcribed, but those sections that we put together, like, I don't know. So like, but there's a strong case that, like, you look at like the Wachowskis, or however you pronounce it, like certain people, like, I think they were privy to the first section. That's my guess, and that they took that to mean whatever it meant for them, and so it's all really complicated, But so I was struggling at a certain point after Joe had gone to Israel after he was in Santa Cruz for a season playing basketball here, and I was having computer trouble, and I was like, and I had my account with Vimeo terminated for copyright stuff, which has been the bane of my existence, is navigating.
Yeah, my Vimeo got removed because they said I was, as a Jewish person, anti-Semitic, because I said that
the worst kind. The worst kind there is.
I said the Third Reich was created through secret societies, the Thule Society. Mm-hmm. So got removed from there.
Right.
I even argue that Walt Disney had a huge part in bringing back the Third Reich.
Right. Oh my God. and totally. And so Joe actually he got me a computer so I could continue to do my film stuff. And so, like, at the time I was in a difficult spot, and he helped me out. And so for this reason, because of Alan Abadessa Green and the different people at the sync book, like at the beginning of almost every film that I do now, I remember to put in, like, it'll say the sync book production at the beginning, and it'll say Apophenia Productions, because that's Joe's deal. So like, I was just like, Joe helped make it possible. They gave me a platform, so I'm kind of just like acknowledging them at the beginning of my videos. So, but yeah, I think we're gonna. Oh yeah. So, and then his idea was, if he got me this computer, would I do a sequel to his film? So his film is like 10 minutes long or something. I made the 7.5 hour long sequel that came from the idea of, like, when 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, the tagline was the ultimate trip. And so I wanted to make like a film collage that was like done like Kubrick's thing, where it's like, you don't explain everything to somebody, you encourage them to figure it out for themselves. You leave everything in plain sight enough using synchronicity. So I basically, like, it's in Letterboxd. It appears in all these places online. I don't even know, like, different people will share it in other places too. It trips me out sometimes. Like, somebody put it on Archive.
Look
But
at this, probably the best movie title ever.
oh wow, I don't
Don't read
think
the rest of the
I've read
review.
that. I haven't read this review. Yeah, okay, so far out. But yeah, I wanted to make a movie that you could drop acid at, and just like it'll carry you through the whole trip. So it's done like in a format of the film, even though it's 7.5 hours long. So it has like a building and it has an intermission, and it kind of culminates at the end and has this big delivery. So yeah.
Well, yeah,
What was
that's
the tie between this Weinkauf fire and the MGM Grand fire? What do the fires matter in all this?
So these were the two biggest hotel fires in United States history, and this is pretty complex stuff. So like the Weinkauf Hotel was in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had like new rules that were put in for like when you built a hotel after that fire, because there was no fire escapes and all these people died due to it. This is brick building, and so the second biggest hotel fire happened the day and year of a release of a film called The Visitors. So this is really like this is complex, this is layered, but the film The Visitors that came out that day and year pivots around the location of the first biggest hotel fire in Atlanta, Georgia. So the movie's filmed in Atlanta, and it has all of this like super like if you know what you're looking at, really direct references to the thing. And so it doesn't, I'll show this in Sorry Cassandra. This is more like things that have come up for me like after the fact, but I get I have indication that Orson Welles was actually involved in the production of this movie The Visitors, using money that he had gotten from a Saudi prince that he also used for a film called The Other Side of the Wind, which wasn't released until relatively recently by Netflix. That like he basically spent all this guy's money and didn't give him any return, and he pissed him off. And so I actually at this point I theorized that the MGM Grand fire was actually a reaction from him pissing off the Saudis. So there's
wow, that's interesting, because even with the Las Vegas event connected to the Saudis with the helicopters, I'm not sure if you dive deep into that event, but this took place on the 33rd parallel. The Weinkauf Hotel fire and the MGM fire in Paradise. I believe Paradise is on the 33rd parallel as well.
That's
so they're
right.
like both connected, both of these fires on the same ley line charging.
The director of this film, The Visitors, went by as a pseudonym for this particular film was Michael J. Paradise. And so the fire took place in Paradise, Nevada. There's all of his other stuff was not shot anywhere near the same way. It's all Italian, and this has like Shelley Winters and like John Huston and like all of this like big, the way that it's directed and everything, it actually like it doesn't, nothing else the guy has done comes anywhere near it. So it's it's totally nuts.
Wow. Well, also like a lot of films that the mafia produces is just, to make it like a flop. That's what I learned when I went to film school, that you could get hired by the mafia to make a film. You'll get paid, but it won't really get distribution, and you won't get your name into credit. So everything will be like fake. Like you get your name into credit, but it's just like it's all fake. You don't get your own name in it though, so it's just like and it just used the money launder as well. So I wonder if there was some stuff like that, but the Saudi connection is interesting,
right? And it connects to 9/11 in crazy ways too, because there's a
formulaic
side to all this stuff. So like for me, I would make the argument, like I don't know at all, I'm really into Webster Tarpley, or I have been, like he's been my favorite 9/11 researcher.
Did you see the number of deaths at the Weinkauf Hotel? It says 119, which is like,
dude, if you watch Sorry Cassandra, I Misunderstood, Everything Predicts 9/11, it lays out all of that, the number of deaths as it relates to gematria, every single Hebrew word that corresponds to the, like it just goes on and on and on. So I'm letting these two events speak to each other on their own, kind of like it's just this web.
Oh my
I lay it out all in plain sight. I expect like my treatment of making this film was like, what if I just expected the most of my audience intelligence wise, like if they were paying that much attention, what they could put together. So I don't narrate it, I just let it speak unto itself. It's based on a Kubrick quote, where he's basically like the least enjoyable way present something artistically is
And
it's
right
direct.
here on the website, I got pulled up here, Paranoid, unless
Oh,
you're
yeah.
already there on the pictures. But like even the secret society symbol of the Knights Templar double cross of Lorraine is like right there in the
Totally. Yeah. This stuff
so
goes on and
I don't
on.
know what this is jumping out of a window. Somebody jumped out of a window.
Yeah, people
there.
were jumping out of the building. Yeah. Same
Oh, this
thing
was the
happened at
fire?
the Indian Grand
Oh,
too. This is the Weinkauf fire, I can tell.
So this is the fire, and right there you got the cross of Lorraine, just like jumping off the balcony in a sense, just like the MLK that took place at Lorraine Hotel on the balcony. I mean, that's crazy right there. I've never heard of this fire.
Right. So the Visitor and the Visitors came out right around the same time. So the ABBA produced their last album called the Visitors in I believe it was in November of 1981, thereabouts. Yeah. So but yeah, so there's high weirdness because that album screams to the Visitors film. So the Visitor was originally called the Visitors when it was so the early posters for it say the same thing as the ABBA album, and so I wasn't expecting I thought we were going to talk about Kubrick stuff. We still could, but
We're doing everything.
So guys, there's Hal Craig. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Hal Craig before, but he was he wrote Waterloo, which was, so Kubrick was working on a Napoleon film for the longest time that never came to fruition. So he dropped that project. So I actually went to the archives in London and Elephant and Castle, like for all Kubrick's boxes, like looking through everything that he had on Napoleon and Aryan Papers and AI and all these unfinished projects, and I wanted to find anything I could that explained why he dropped Napoleon beyond, the stated explanation that it would be too expensive, because if you go through what he was saying that it would cost him, it's not really anything that tremendous. And actually, so Dino De Laurentiis produced his film Waterloo. Like, I think production started for it 3 months after Kubrick dropped his. And so there's a subtext that exists within Waterloo that screams of Stanley Kubrick. So like what he did with his subtext with Dr. Strangelove actually shows up throughout Waterloo, where there's this kind of like thing going on between the Duke of Wellington and Napoleon that's like super homoerotic. So like, you're probably familiar with that letter that Kubrick responded to with Dr. Strangelove, where he said the whole thing was a sexual allegory. So he said that from the beginning to the end, Kubrick said this. So like when you see that they're fueling the plane at the beginning in midair, that's actually supposed to be it's communicating. So you get the idea. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but like, so that the ending of Dr. Strangelove is actually like a big orgasm, and the whole thing is about sexual repression. And so it's frustration between Russia and America, as though they were like, had this kind of dance going on that they're going to get it on, and then the explosion at the end is that they finally do. So this is admitted
that's
by
what's
Kubrick.
going on right now with the leftists and Trump. They all say F Trump, FTG, and also the other one says FJB, right? They all want to F each other, and then there's going to be this explosion, the orgasm.
Right. So, like in Back to the Future, why it says CRM 114 on the device at the beginning when he gets blown up by the speaker, it shoots him back. And that's from Dr. Strangelove. They're referencing Dr. Strangelove. That's the bomb code for the bomb. So the same symbolism actually connects. There's a video that Joe Alexander made that he never released that shows Kabbalistically all this stuff in Back to the Future as a sexual allegory. So that
CRM that you just mentioned too, doesn't that come up in other Kubrick movies?
The serum is 114 in A Clockwork Orange, which is tying back to the same thing.
Right, like CRM 114 versus CRM 114.
Sorry, Cassandra, I misunderstood everything. Predicts 9/11. Like it's towards the beginning of the movie. There's actually a trick that you can do with the three Back to the Future movies. If you let their when the lightning flash happens at the clock tower, if you align the lightning flash in all three films when it happens, and you see what plays out, what continues. So there's a trick you can do with I don't know, like in Back to the Future 3, when Doc sees Marty at the beginning of the film and he like freaks out and falls back onto a piano, there's a trick you can do with the lightning flash so that to figure out the timing of this, where it makes it so that when Marty gets blown back from the speaker in Back to the Future 1, it actually falls exactly in unison with when Doc freaks out when he sees Marty. So like the two, it's like they're parallel to each other in a really crazy way. But
wow. So the scene where the lightning hits the watchtower on all three, that you freeze frame it and like you overlap it and it's connected.
I let all three films play simultaneously and see what happens around them before and after that, and the way that the way that they connect. It's a puzzle. I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know how it couldn't be intentional. Actually,
I mean, you're like invested millions and millions, billions and billions of dollars into a film. You got the military involved with it. It's like high level control mechanism. They're not going to let little tiny things slip. And then you think of this micro macrocosm of this film that everyone watch. It becomes the mythos of our lives, of our generation, from Teletubbies to Back to the Future. These different like religious undertones. Like Teletubbies got the sun, right? So they're like worshiping soul in a sense. And then you got all these different movies and TV shows. It seems to me, when you talk about synchronicity, like syncing, is this organic, or is this God, or is this man manipulated, or what's your thoughts?
Both are happening at the same time. So like basically, but it's hard as like when you go into it to know where the actual line is. So it becomes vague at certain points, and that's kind of where the mysticism is in how the two meet. And I don't think like a lot of this stuff, like especially with the album film pairing stuff, that if there is intention behind it, that it's as mechanical as people would think, because it's like if something's that on point, like just having the intention to do something goes so much further than like most people would realize. So like, you know, and when it comes to fine tuning, tweaking something after the fact, like, because things already kind of do that. So if you just take it a step, it doesn't take as much to take it further, so that, you know, and you'll have these really profound winks that come through if you're really paying attention. And with a lot of this stuff, like, I don't want to tell people ahead of time, you know, like what to look for. Like, I want them to have that insight.
To go on their own journey, to see it.
Yeah,
But it also, it speaks, I've noticed, to different people looking at different things. So like, it's just like a journey people are on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's confirmations sometimes that are so uncanny and so ridiculous that I can't, you know, sometimes I gasp, you know, like
And you called it wink. Is that like God winking at you? Like, yo, what up, playa?
It could be either way. That's what I call principle in nature. That's a causal, and that's what Jung was pointing at, was this principle, and it's an organic, profound, like it's an intelligence that surpasses our own. But then at the same time, you have people who are basically participating in this and pushing things in a certain direction as artists, and so the two actually come together in this strange way, you know. So,
yeah, I call them God shots. That it's like just God saying hello. It happens to everybody, and everybody's like, it's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I promise we will get into Kubrick, and I think a cool part of that is that we've been doing these live streams every night, mostly because Doenut and I have dropped the freaking Illuminati comic, and it's doing outstanding. We're at over 30,000 raised so far in 2 weeks. We're halfway there.
Oh man, we only got 13 days to go. Make sure you lock
13 days to go. And really, tonight it'll be awesome. If we could just get the 475. If we could just get 5 people to back, you can back it for as little as just $1 if you just want to donate. But then we also have a $5 tier that you'll get the digital version, all in color. You'll get a video that me and Doenut do, going through page by page, explaining everything. And I think, I don't know if it's still on the table. Are you still offering the Doenut's Words of Encouragement? I forgot the name of the album you were talking about.
Yeah, I'll put out my Doenut's Manifestation Encouragement Meditation Hypnosis mixtape if we get it at the 33,000 mark by in the next 2 hours.
And what's
So we
really
got 2
cool
more hours left.
is that after this Illuminati comic is done, and after the artist finishes the new Chaos Twins issue 2, he's gonna immediately start on the comic that me and David have been working on, which is another chick track. But it basically drops all of this Kubrick symbolism, and it relates it to the Golden Bough. I don't know how much we want to get into the Golden Bough. That'll just be a whole entire episode, maybe.
That's the thing. Like any of these topics, like I'm like, that's why I'm talking to what. Like,
Can you just go ahead and summarize the entire Golden Bough for us? In
Oh my
3
God.
words or less. Go.
well, that's what we're trying to do with the comic. Is like, how do you condense something that's so dense and so complicated, and just give like the bullet points to it? You know,
What a name too. The Magic, Art, and Evolution of Kings. That's is the probably the greatest summary of what the Golden Bough is. Although
that's
it
just
sounds
part
so
one.
vague.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is just
Bough
volume
mean?
1 out of like a huge ginormous series.
What is a
Yeah.
bow?
So the
What
bough
is
is
a bough?
referring to a branch in what was it, a sacred tree in a place called Nemi that translates as Diana's mirror. And what Fraser from Cambridge, anthropologist, what he postulated was that these archetypes that were involved in this ritual that was done way back when, that it like basically plays out through time. And so this is why Kubrick was known to be obsessed with this book, is because he saw this something from anthropology, not in a mythological sense, but in something that's actually playing out in the world today. And so you'd pull somebody had to meet certain qualifications. They had to be a complete outsider from the kingdom, and they would pull this branch from this sacred tree, and all these people would come together to watch it. The branch is symbolic of both the king's phallus and the king's daughter. So by him pulling that branch, the king is essentially already dead. Like he's challenging the king, and it's spelling out the king's doom. So the king sometimes would even kill himself. So that's where we get the symbolism of the suicide king. Or he would, die in combat with this outsider. And so this is where you also get like, the spring man and like the green man was referred to as. So he fulfills this archetype where you're bringing new growth to the kingdom through sacrifice. So the kingdom is viewed as one with this tree symbolically. They're connected. So the idea is like if the health of the king is symbolically tied to the health of the kingdom. So if you have a sickly leader, that denotes that the kingdom itself is in a sickly state. And so the ancient people wanted to align the dynamics of the kingdom with what they saw in nature and the seasons. And so basically this is a pruning back of the tree to allow the kingdom to continue to thrive, because if they just let it keep growing and growing and growing on its own through greed and whatever, then eventually it'll destroy itself. This also has to do with incest. So they needed to bring in new blood. So they can't just keep it in the family indefinitely, because you end up with people like George W. or the Queen. Like, you gotta keep it going. So
Right.
It's
Yeah.
ambitious because the
That
Golden
sounds
Bough is
amazing.
incredibly complex. Kubrick's complex, and we were like, hey, let's just cover both of those in like 50 pages. Go.
Yeah. So yeah, and then looking at Bohemian Grove as a reversal of this traditional ceremonial act. So what we see at Bohemian Grove appears to have every indication of being a celebration of, instead of killing the king, killing that outsider fool that would go and challenge the king, and then being like, we got another year in power. Midsummer sets us free. So it's the hubris of man. So yeah.
All right, so David,
Also, like the tree thing, it goes deep, right? Cabal, like the tree of life, the tree, the Yggdrasil tree or whatever.
Yes.
How you ever say that? So this tree symbolism goes way deep too, and that's wild. I never knew about that book and how advanced like these directors and producers are that are making these high level pieces of art, and now it seems to be like so corrupted. Like I don't know. The new movie Wicked just came out. I don't know how advanced they are with the Golden Bough, or are they just reading the Theosophy of Helen Blavatsky and just utilizing that in the films,
Well, keep in mind that Kubrick was very, very anti-Hollywood. And as far as I'm concerned, Spielberg was more of his enemy than he was his friend. And there's a lot of indicators of that. And even when you look at interviews with Spielberg about Kubrick, even though he did AI, I don't think Kubrick ever intended for Spielberg to do AI. And what he did with it, make it into a family film where the original conception of it was absolutely terrifying.
And
it was,
didn't Kubrick do a little bit of AI before he died, like the first 15 minutes or so?
Well, he had people working for him that were basically coming up with conceptions based on what he was feeding them. So he had these kind of premises that he wanted them to build off of so they could bring something together. And so there's actually 3 different screenplays that were working towards that end. And so I've read a good portion of those in the archives, or what I was able to, but the notes from Kubrick on those are fucking nuts. There's Kabbalah stuff where he talks about the homunculus and all kinds of things where he's and he's distinguishing between what AI is in relationship to the homunculus. So he's no, this isn't like this in these specific ways. So and it's crazy because me and a friend of mine, Patrick Svek, and my old podcast, we used to discuss these things just super in a speculative way, and as in regards to how where you would write what is it that you know this, Thomas, what you write on the forehead, a met. So you have
the golem.
A met, yeah, on the golem you write a met, which is truth. And then once you're done with it, once the golem is done what you want it to do for you, then you remove the aleph and you get met, which is the Hebrew for death. So you're going from truth to death. And so we'd trip out on that in relationship to Hal when they shut down Hal. Is this the golem thing where you shut the thing down? Well, I found in Kubrick's own writing references to this exact thing in the workings for AI before Spielberg ever touched it. And so it's
Wow.
to explain to the guy who's writing it for him how AI is distinct from this idea of the golem. So
the kid in it, the Sixth Sense kid, he's in the new film Blink Twice. I don't know if you've seen that movie yet. Blink Twice, really good. It's by Zoe Kravitz, Lenny Kravitz's daughter, I believe.
Yeah.
And she's exposing through the film the Diddy parties. And you got this kid from the AI in the Sixth Sense, as the star in it. And he even I don't know, this was a good movie too. I would check it out. I bet you could think it to Lenny Kravitz album or something, or a Puff Daddy album.
Oh wow.
Yeah, actually, both of those are great ideas. Actually,
I'm down. I don't know if that's the thing, is that with sync films, album film stuff, I'll end up being exposed to both films and albums that I sometimes, in certain cases, that I wouldn't listen to on my own.
So those albums that you were showing that you wouldn't listen to, because I saw
I wouldn't,
listen to most of
cases
those
of that.
albums.
I wouldn't have, at a certain time in my life, I wouldn't have ever. I still wouldn't just put on a Lady Gaga album and be oh, I'm going to clean the house and listen to Lady Gaga. But in the context of a sync film, there's places where I'm this is freaking amazing. If you play Metropolis with the Fame Monster, it's phenomenal. And I don't relate to the thing in the same way in this context that I otherwise would, if that makes sense. It's qualitatively different. You know what I mean?
Well, we're coming up on Thanksgiving tomorrow, and they do the Macy's Day Parade. And something I've noticed with the Green Man, I think you did a mixture of Green Man and Green Day and something right there. I don't know. I could be tripping. I just heard you say Green Man and I saw Green Day.
Well, Jim Carrey's always been the Green Man repeatedly,
that's
right?
What it was.
The Riddler, the Mask, the Grinch, he just does this thing. But yeah.
So they got the Green Jolly Giant, and that goes on the Macy's Day Parade, and it's this Green Man agriculture god, and I've shown some pictures of it, how it's ritualistic, the way that they build a lot of the stuff around that Green Man. So this is going to be interesting. I might stream the Macy's Day Parade tomorrow, y'all. What I mean? Just because it's an interesting credit card. Macy's, that's Macy's, right? Macy's,
Sure.
That's a credit card company.
And
People
that goes back. Yeah.
Yeah, J.C. Penney's isn't an outlet that sells clothes. What they sell is interest and credit cards. So like that same thing with Macy's. That's the business model. So it's gonna be fun to watch that. I guess I don't know. What's your thoughts on that syncing Macy's Day Parade with West Side Connection? Just playing.
Oh man, I don't know. There's definitely something classic about just that parade, I guess. If I visualize it, I see Snoopy, a giant inflatable Snoopy in my mind. And I don't know if Snoopy's been there every year or if that's just old or whatever, but
Snoop Dogg. Yeah. You got the Snoop Dogg with it. Snoop Dogg was at the Olympics, so he's important to the mind of the masses of the world, because like that would be interesting too, to see the sync of a ritual like that, a ritual of the Olympic ceremony, or even though they're already playing music at the Super Bowl.
Right.
But yeah,
well, Snoopy started all with war. So the first Snoopy book is, I mean, he was a veteran, right? The guy who did Snoopy Schultz, whatever, Peanuts. So that guy, and it started with Snoopy, where he was fighting the Red Baron, right? And like he gets like shot down and he's going through the war zone, and that was the first Peanuts thing, was this Snoopy war story. And so like even if you watch Full Metal Jacket, you'll see Snoopy up there in their press room, when they're coming up with shit. And Charlie, they're fighting Charlie's out there. So
that's right. Yeah.
And Charlie don't surf, because Charlie Manson wrote songs for the Beach Boys, but he didn't surf, and neither did the Beach Boys for that matter. So what the hell? Yeah.
I'm glad actually
Right.
you bringing up surf reminded me of something. I wanted to ask you your impression on this, and it kind of relates to Kubrick and Golden Bough and syncretism and all of these things. Not syncretism, but like just the syncing of all these movies and whatever. But you kind of answered before that it's a combination of the world kind of just having these patterns built in, and then maybe some people orchestrating or being able to use them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Does this analogy work, that if you were to go to the beach every day and saw someone just like shredding waves nonstop, and over time thinking like, oh, not only are they really good surfer, but they're creating those waves, like they're creating the environment in which they're sort of thriving and making their living off of, and people start to convince themselves that it's like an all-in-one shop, like, oh, that surfer's clearly making the waves too, not realizing that what the surfer is really doing is knows like when a wave is about to form, like senses the patterns in the environment, and then uses that to their ability. And it's this like combination process. It's not just
it's a perfect
the
allegory
surfer without the wave, and it's not just a wave without the surfer. It's both of them working in unison.
Right, that's exactly it. So there's actually an old Kabbalistic allegory in that way, where there's two guys that build structures, and people go, I'm trying to condense this, but yeah, people go up to the first guy and they're just like amazed by what he built, and they're like, wow, what did you build? Like, this is incredible. And the guy's like, no, actually, I just see these patterns in nature, and I've documented them, and then I've recreated them to the best of my ability, but what I'm building is absolutely nothing compared to what it is that I'm modeling them after. Like, look at that, like what we exist within. And they're like, oh, okay. And then there's like, they go to the other guy who built structures and stuff. They're like, oh wow, this is an incredible structure. And he's like, oh, thank you. It's like, it's like
that's why we are in the smart cities and away from the pattern of nature, and like the Fibonacci sequence, and seeing how that works, seeing how waves work, being connected to that. We are like, at least me, I live in a smart city, so it's just all just grid, crappy buildings, like, you know what I mean? And it's like right in nature. I'm like in the desert where it's like beautiful nature, but they just covered it up with cement and
right, tear down to paradise and put up a parking lot. But they're distinct, but they're not separate. So that's like kind of the point of like Darren Aronofsky's Pi, where he's like,
I love that movie.
There's patterns everywhere in nature. Like, and if you graph the numbers of any system, patterns emerge. Mathematics is the language of nature, so where is that actual line between our goings on, which we relate to as kind of like chaos, and the intelligence that exists in the patterns that we can observe in nature? So like that's kind of what Syncro-Mysticism is an acknowledgement that there's an intelligence in the things of our goings on, that we can distinguish ourselves from what we emerge from, but we're not ultimately separate, and we can find signs of that. So that's the real sync wink that I think like Jung would speak to, where it's literally shining through. But then you're also like going, like a lot of us come to sync, especially in the online synchronistic community that I've been a part of. A lot of us have come to this through conspiracy theory, because if you keep digging and digging into conspiracy theory, and you go into like what's his name, James Shelby Downer, who did like the King Kill thing, which is a little biggity whatever, but like you go to a certain place and you're like, wait, this isn't even like, how do you even explain this? What would it take for like these people to like take it to this level of ritual, like, and that's where I think you see you discover, if you keep going with it, is specific places where you can see how they're merging, where it's like there's nature takes over, where the two come together. And that's really like, that's like Purusha and Prakriti. That's like the triangles face the opposite way, that are one's laid on top of the other, like there's the point in the center of transcendence to get to the other side. So there's no way around. You have to kind of go directly through, one's own mortality to get to that transcendent place. There's no workaround,
If you think King Kill 33 is a little bit wild, I don't know if I'm sure you've read his Carnivals of Life and Death. Have you read this one before?
I haven't read that, but dude, actually, I brought it up myself, but like I was listening to the recordings of him that I didn't know that I had until recently. Like I got them years ago. I don't know if you've heard those, but like I got like...
now I need to... Well, this book was the inspiration for me to start doing comic books at all.
Really?
I read this book and I thought, this is so insane. There's no way any of this is possible. Not a single claim that could have been in that book was possible. He was saying that Alexander Graham Bell was this nudist, and he was running around Jekyll Island shouting like a madman, doing like Indian war chants.
It comes across a little like Hollywood Babylon,
Well,
but
it was like a Hollywood Babylon kind of thing. But then I started doing just like some random research and found out that Alexander Graham Bell was absolutely one of the strongest advocates of nudity on his time period. He was in all these books about being a nudist, and that I read the autobiography of Thomas Watson, the guy that worked with Alexander Graham Bell, and he also said that every time Alexander Graham Bell had some kind of big discovery, he would run around doing these Indian war chants. Like that was the way that he expressed his energy, like all pent up and like celebrating. And the more and more I read about all the crazy claims that James Shelby Downer had in his weird books, I was like, oh my God, even if it's all like just stitched together with like a fictional story behind it, the key points were so over the top and true that now I like, the guy was a prophet in my mind. Like he kind of knew what he was doing by sprinkling a little bit extra on top, but he did it so masterfully.
Well, he was on one, it's like Cooper with the Behold a Pale Horse, where you have, but like he's very relatable to him. But like if you were to look at somebody like Zecharia Sitchin, or like I mentioned, like Kenneth Anger, who did Hollywood Babylon, like to me, like I don't know, like this is all speculative, but I get the sense that these people were actually doing this as kind of like a service to like, because everyone knew that weird shit was going on in Hollywood, right? But it's like when it comes to Kenneth Anger, so it's like, and everyone knew that there was weird shit going on with what the Catholic Church had access to in terms of all the Sumerian stuff. So it's like, I think that these people, there were certain people that were kind of like, they were real disinformation agents, because they knew that people were going to catch on to certain things eventually. So in the service of these organizations, they put it all together, and they include a lot of disinfo throughout the mix. So like I wouldn't say that about James Shelby Downer. Like I think he was literally just on one, like he wanted to know. But like and he had his own proclivities, you know what I mean? But when it comes to like Zecharia Sitchin, I think that motherfucker was totally working for either the church directly, or maybe through Lucis Trust or something, where they were like, we want to like muddy the waters, you know what I mean? Like so that when people go, and people will dismiss something because they'll go, oh, well, that's just Zecharia Sitchin's weird trip, that's just disinfo, and they'll throw it out. And I don't think like Kenneth Anger doesn't seem like somebody to me who would care if people just saw him as disinfo. They're like, he's just like, oh, I'm just like, he's gonzo, right? Like he's just like, oh, what does it matter? It's just a bunch of shit, But
hey, that surfer didn't make that wave. That's kind of what it is, right?
I think my friend Pukey Pete at Horrible Home Video, he syncs comedy and horror together, not video, but art. So he did one piece of art that was amazing. That was the Muppets, right? But with Puppet Master. So it'd be kind of cool to think some like Master of Puppets Metallica with the Muppets movie. That'd be sick too. You know what I
love
mean?
it. I love it because a lot of this stuff is just fun. Like some of my syncs that are actually like have a level of profundity that I wouldn't have anticipated came about just through me being like, well, that's funny. You know, like I see a resonance somewhere and I'm like, well, what happens? I just run the experiment, you know, because you don't know until you see it. So sometimes I'd be like something just doing it as a joke because it's a funny thing. And then I'm like, wait a minute though, actually. Did he really just say that in relationship? Wait, oh no, and then sometimes it'll just stack up, and then it'll reach a crescendo, and I'm just like, okay, really, what the fuck? But
yeah, I do these syncs with symbolism in world events, and like I got this camcorder right here. So like I think like the 2023 is the year of the rabbit, right? And then the rabbit is connected to the aliens. All alien films showcase the rabbit connected to the UFO. And there's a rabbit on the moon. First person abducted was Bugs Bunny, you know, by Marvin the Martian. And all these synchronicities of Area 51, or the Illuminati being founded on 5-1. And on 5-1, that's when the aliens landed in Las Vegas for the year of the rabbit on 2023. So those predictions were right, or the future gazing of The Economist magazine. And this magazine, all it talked about was the importance of the UFOs. And so like I got like all these different articles and streams throughout the years of just looking at a symbol like the USB symbol and the trident. And, you know, we were just talking about
surfing. Looks like Shin, doesn't it?
Shin, it does look like Shin. Put one in. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Put one in.
right.
If y'all don't know what that means, that's the game Dreidel. If you land on Shin, you got to put one in. But isn't that interesting how it's like the Squid Games, PlayStation controllers? Like, how many times have we looked at these things or used these words of streaming video, like a stream? We're surfing the internet, like it's water. And this is the probably the most recent sync that I've been going over for a while is on Elon and the Omega. And he was just wearing the Omega chain, and him being El, right? And in Hebrew, El, right?
Well, his name means tree.
Oak tree.
Was tree fragrance or something? It's musk, right?
No, it means oak tree.
Oh, if it means oak tree, then that's crazy because I was just talking about the Golden Bough, which is an oak tree.
Right. And so like the oak tree has been so important. And I believe that's where the OK symbol comes from. The AOK. You know how people throw up that? I'm not even going to throw it up because you get in trouble throwing up the AOK.
Right. You read into that one because it's 666 though, right? That's
what
people
AOK say. Is oak. AOK, just an anagram for oak, just like red ram. Red ram.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What's your thought on the finger? Like E.T.?
It's a Jupiter finger. So like he does that, like it says 42 on his shirt, right? When he's looking in the mirror. And the song that always plays whenever Danny has a vision in The Shining is actually called Jacob's Ladder. So like the film Jacob's Ladder actually seems to be taking the same subtext from The Shining, which is that Jack is dead. So like if you've seen Jacob's Ladder and the psychic lady is like looking at his palm and she's like, well, according to this, you're already dead. So Kubrick says this. He refers to it as an evil reincarnation cycle. You know, there was a reporter that had called Kubrick, and that there was a recording of that communication where he gives the explanation for the end photo, you know. So he's saying he's been dead the whole time. So like it's a Bardo of hell or something, you know. So it's like he has to keep going through this thing, you know, like it's a different interpretation of reincarnation because it's just like, you know, it's like a dream or something, you know, or a nightmare, you know. Yeah, so Jupiter, you know, that symbol, the alchemical symbol for Jupiter is an amalgamation of a 4 and a 2.
It's the 24. Yeah, it's the Omega, right? 24 letter Omega. It was the original Olympics Paris logo for 2024 was the symbol of Jupiter. And Elon is straight connected to Jupiter. Like you can connect them straight to Jupiter.
How so?
I'm looking to see if I can find. So here's the Paris Olympics.
Jupiter symbol for Paris. Yeah. Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, Jupiter.
And then they changed it to this girl and like the fire in the minds of men. And I think it's the Omega. Let me see if I could find the connection to Elon with Jupiter because this was here. I think this might.
Well, technically everything relates to Jupiter. That's kind of the point. But yeah,
okay.
One way or another. Well, I mean, you know that the thing with the 42, like significance of 42, like you could go on for days with it. But I mean, if you perceive a rainbow, the angle at which light refracts water for you to perceive it is always at 42 degrees exactly. You're probably hip to that.
Have you heard this one too? Danny touches the doorknob of room 237 exactly 42 minutes in.
Damn.
There's all these. There's a list of 42s that are presented throughout The Shining. Some of them check out, some of them don't. I would have to check that one because I used to repeat them and take them kind of for granted. They'll be like, oh, Wendy swings the bat 42 times or this or that, and so like I had to go through the freaking movie and count a lot of this stuff, and it doesn't always follow. But some of them do, and they're crazy. So,
well, did you know that if you take the first word every 42 words and stitch those together and give you like some like really difficult tasks that you have to check into?
There's examples of stuff like that I could from
So Zeus is the king of the gods, the god of the sky, and that's like Elon, right, with the Starlink. And the symbol of Zeus is the planet Jupiter, or the oak tree. And that's
Zeus is Jupiter. Jupiter is the Roman version of Zeus, which is Greek. So just like Kronos is Saturn, Jupiter is Zeus. Right.
Right. So they're all playing out these different gods, and Biden is the Bident, I believe. There's a lot of connections to that as well with the are you into astrology at all?
I have been, yeah. I mean, I paid attention to the trines, the sextiles, and the conjunctions and the squares for like many years, like as they occurred, like paying attention to where the moon was all the time, like, you know, and there's something, things can come out of that but it kind of requires a lot of attention and consistency, you know.
Yeah,
it's hard to keep that up, you know. If you're going to go into it, you kind of have to give it everything, you know.
You brought up Zeus. I have to bring out, this is one of my favorite weird little threads that I ended up going down. And that's that Baal-Zephon, which is one of the many different gods that get amalgamated into just Baal when someone's like, oh, they're worshiping Baal. Well, Baal was Lord, and Lord meant a whole bunch of different ones, but all of the different Baal gods kind of get squished into one big ball, and everyone just calls it that Baal. But one of those balls was Baal-Zephon, and Baal-Zephon was named after Mount Safon or Sapon. I don't know how to pronounce it, all the different variations of it. But look, he was related to all of these different balls, and apparently Mount Zephon, where Baal-Zephon came from, is the Hebrew word for north. That's where it originally came from. But also in Greek mythology, this is where Zeus defeats Typhon on this mountain. So the mountain where Zeus comes from is called Mount Zephon, and that this is essentially the exact same, or it gets through actual syncretism where the gods kind of merge with other ones. So
totally
all becomes Zeus.
Right. So we've been over this before, but the Masonic Trinity of Jabalon, it's extremely significant. What's that?
I might have to kill you for saying that. I'm sorry.
Saying it out loud.
Yeah,
I didn't pronounce it correctly, so it's okay.
It's not where they get like.
I would actually dissipate in front of you, so you wouldn't have to do anything to me. I would have done it to
next
myself.
time we're in person, we'll have to sort this out.
You know how people say, you know how they say we ballin'? Do you think they're like the ballin'?
Ballin'.
Job
right, but the on part of that Trinity, that's like a lot of these. this shit is key. So like somebody the guy who told me about this originally, I was like probably 19 years old. This dude was like, I've run into him in town. He's the happiest homeless guy I've ever met. He told me about the Masonic Trinity in the same conversation that he told me that his father worked for the CIA and that his father told him on his deathbed in Big Sur that that man who was at the time who was just elected president, George Bush Sr., who's an older guy, the George Bush Sr., that he helped kill Kennedy. He was like, he didn't pull the trigger, but that guy knows how to keep a secret. And he got moved to the head of the CIA because of his role in the Kennedy assassination. And this was before JFK 2 ever came out, that documentary that puts everything on George Sr., all this stuff, you know? So like, I don't know, man. Like, he also told me about this, but the on part, see that there where it says strength? Where it was? Yeah, you just had it. Yeah, there you go. So this word in Hebrew, this is actually like idolatrous, right? It says strength, but like Oz is also strength. So like the Wizard of Oz, the Oz part of the Wizard of Oz is a Hebrew word for there's two pillars to the Kabbalistic tree and Solomon's temple, right? Yakin and Boaz, which translates literally as established in strength. So the first pillar on the right is established. The pillar on the left is in strength. That word for strength is denoted in Hebrew as the integrity of the universe, right? But this word on is like a substitute version of that. So that would be the stone that the builders rejected, is that actual essential integrity strength thing that is godly, right? And this is the stone that's put in its place in the interim while the klipo rule, for all intents and purposes, the tree during the fall. So we like the stages of the fall. It's like a constriction that started way back when, that it reaches a crescendo. That's basically at some point, this is a prophecy in Judaism, will burst. That's the Jubilee. That's the forgiving of all the debt. That's the release of all the slaves. That's our own evolution ultimately. Like, it's an organic thing. It's not something that we necessarily have to do. What we do follows, like, at any point we could align ourselves with it. And that kind of relates to what I was saying earlier about the Golden Bough being like, we would have to align our systems with what we see in nature in order to allow the thing to thrive. Like, we always have that option. But if we don't do that, then we get the bitter judgments. So like we could have sweet judgments. So like Gevora isn't necessarily like evil, like it's not bad. It's just like we experience it as severity when we don't align ourselves with what we actually see in nature. So when we go against that through our hubris and our arrogance or whatever, then eventually it reaches a point where we're going to be forced into it one way or the other. Like, we're to be forced to align. That's like all the communications around like hell in traditional Judaism. It's not like a punishment thing. It's more like the flu. It's like, if you live a certain way and you miss the mark, then eventually you'll have to be straightened. So the word that's used for hell is the same word that's used for like straightening a blade and heat, you know? So it's like, if you've gone out of alignment, you're going to be put back into alignment. So there's no like eternity in hell. It's like a place to put everything back in its rightful order, right? So yeah, it's just, so the thing with on is that that's actually Heliopolis. So like that last part of the Masonic Trinity, so that's like the Ujat. It's the freaking eye of Ra, and it's relating that there's a substitute version of strength that is a space holder for the Shekinah, which is the feminine aspect of God, gets pushed to the bottom of the tree as Malkut, and in her place in the pathway of, if you apply the tarot arcana to the Kabbalistic tree and you see where strength, which would be Leo, where that aligns itself, that pathway is between Chesed and Gevora. It's between mercy and judgment. And so like that pathway is the top of the terrestrial pillars. When Philippe Petit, that French guy, put that wire across the two towers and he walked across it, that was like the straight up symbolism relating to the strength of the kingdom. Like, those were Yakin and Boaz. Like, because one tower was slightly taller than the other, they used the exact same ratio. That was proven by Scott Onstott who did Secrets in Plain Sight. He showed how the two towers are overtly modeled after Yakin and Boaz. That guy, for him, I don't know if he did it consciously. I doubt it. That actually makes it more profound if he didn't. But when he put that wire and walked across, that was a statement. That was the equivalent of pulling that Golden Bough, because he's challenging the kingdom by saying, I can go back and forth between these pillars. Because it's like that's the pathway. So
what
like,
was that called? When was that? I don't know what you're talking
in
about.
1972, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, if you've seen Back to the Future predicts 9/11, that's the basis of it, is because he's showing that what's his name, the director of Back to the Future. Come on.
And it's called the high. It's the tightrope between the twin towers. That's what they're calling it. On August 7th, which is around that helical rising, that important date of August 10th, and the day centering upon it as well. So it's like he's doing that. That's wild. I didn't even.
Sorry.
That was wild.
Yeah. So that's his film. So that's the See You in 30 Years. You see, I'm sure most people here have seen Back to the Future Predicts 9/11 on YouTube, but I mean, that was the kicker. And so he did Man on a Wire was the documentary about that guy. It was called Man on a Wire. And then Leonard Cohen did Bird on a Wire. And if you watch like The Walk, like the girl is like playing like Leonard Cohen's Suzanne in there. Like there's like, so I have a sync with Leonard Cohen's Popular Problems and The Walk. That's just like, it blew my mind at the time. So I have that up with like the volume in between all the vocals. It's like this whole like cinematic, it's very meta, you know. But what do you got?
That's wild that he walked over across.
Whenever people call me out, I'm supposed to put the hat on, but I'm trying to be subtle about it.
Oh, did somebody call you out?
One or two. They think I'm a Mason for some reason.
Oh, well, you are you not? You are a Freemason, no?
Are you outing me in public?
No, you're
right
allowed
now?
to ask if somebody's a Freemason. I thought there's no outing of. Is that not? I thought to ask to be a Mason, ask a Mason. Am I supposed to? I'm supposed to do that in private, not in front of all these people. You know what? I don't know all the rules.
He has retracted his question.
Okay.
I was right about to answer, but since you're retracting, I'm not going to answer out of respect.
Sure. You know, that's the trait that I'm supposed to exude for Sagittarius is silence, and I'm really not good at it. I've in my life I've had, you know, at least 2 years of complete silence if you add them up. Like I did 5 months one time, I did 3 months other times. Like it's I'd write on a board because Baba Hari Das, my teacher, who
you stop talking, you just don't talk.
Yeah,
I did that for most of my life.
Did you have a board where people
No.
Unless you tell them otherwise?
I just didn't talk. Like like I don't know how old I was. I just didn't talk. I was just like forever. Like I was known as like the guy that just didn't talk. and then I started to talk, and I was like, "Man, this is kind of fun."
Yeah. Talking
now I can't stop talking.
What age was that? What age was the move from not talking to talking?
I was never talking ever, like my whole life. I just didn't talk. I didn't like my voice too, you know, insecure kind of maybe as a kid, because I got a distinct kind of voice. And what happened was, and then you start smoking weed, and then you really don't talk. Like you just sit there quiet, right? And then I think it was when one of my uncles helped me mentor me on how to like do like business and stuff like that, you know. That I saw him talking, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. This guy can just talk to anybody, and it was so confident. And then I started reading books on like John C. Maxwell and like just talking, and I just got into it now. And I lived in California. I think California switched it up because I think you have to talk in California.
It's just classic exposure therapy.
Yeah, just to make it in life, you gotta be like talking.
Yeah, dude, I can relate. I was deaf until the age of 2, like 2.5, thereabouts, something like that. They put tubes in my ears because my canals were sealed. So like my whole first part of my life was I was deaf.
Do you remember it at all?
I have like a vague because I had an extreme speech impediment all through my elementary school and like even a bit into
the class?
I had speech therapy like all the time.
You went to the class where they got the stars?
The stars?
Yeah.
What's that? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I went to speech class in school.
Speech class to give you stars.
They gave me little stickers.
Yeah, no, I was like horrified when I saw the fucking masking stuff that was happening with the like that the kids had to wear masks, and I was like,
Right.
it was such a nightmare for me, like learning to speak later than other people, like because if you have that delay, you know, you're still learning, like when you're like 1-2 years old, you know, like you're acclimating and localizing yourself and everything. So to like just not have that sense going for that time, and then all of a sudden to have that sense was like, you know, it was a tricky thing. Yeah.
So you taking like vow of silence or something now?
Years later, when I studied under Baba Hari Das for 7 years, and I traveled to India with him. I studied the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali as he was basically putting a book together of them. So this was Ram Dass's teacher, not his guru, but his teacher. So he was silent for I think 60 years when I met him. So and then yeah, there he is. Yeah, I studied under this guy, and he was a silent monk, and so I that was what got me started on that. So I first did like 5 months of silence and just write on a board, and then throughout my life, throughout my 20s, I would write on a board for different periods. So yeah, I would say added up to about 2 years.
The Illuminati comic to 33,000 tonight, I'll do the vow of silence and only write on a board.
Yeah, I wouldn't have much of a podcast if I was still writing on a board, you know.
No, you could do it. You could do it, right?
I don't know.
You just throw the symbol, you'd be like,
yeah.
So what did you learn by doing this vow of silence? Is it worth it, or is it like what did you learn from it?
Well, for me, I didn't know what I would get out of it, you know, like it's when I went to speak again, the first after 5 months of total silence, the voice that I heard was first of all, my vocal cords were so relaxed. Like even like now as I'm speaking, like there's a degree of tension, but it was just like breathing. It was like breathing words. And like, you know, when people say like to like abracadabra, to speak is to create, that kind of thing, like I could really feel that happening, like the power of speech, you know, and also just that, you know, it's not the normal kind of disassociation. Like maybe it approaches something like ketamine, but it's very natural in the way that I'm not my voice is the same thing as like I'm not my body. Like something can be an aspect of me, but it doesn't, like the way that we attribute so much to it, and also being able to think in imagery. So like the voice like dropped away, and more of my processing became like visual oriented. Like I didn't have something to attach my personhood to in terms of the vocal cord. So even like as I speak, you know, I'm forever changed by those experiences, you know, and it's not just them, it's like what I brought to them. Like that's something that gets me, like even about like psychedelics and stuff. Like sometimes it's like people will treat it like the same way, like, oh, did you see this movie? Like it's just like a spectator thing, when so much of it is malleable and what we bring to it. So like something is what you make of this experience. So it's not like, oh, did you do this drug? Oh, what does that drug do? It's like it's how you're relating to the thing determines so much of what that thing is. You know what I mean? Like it only does so much for you. So like psychedelics are referenced in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali as entheogens really directly, and the prescription or whatever, or the explanation is that this will take you to a certain level of samadhi. This can assist you to a certain level of samadhi, but it doesn't do the thing for you. You know what I mean? Like it's just an aid that will only go so far. And so you're like, aspirants in yoga would be encouraged to do entheogens, but they wouldn't be looking to those entheogens to make them, you know, to bring about the big revelation. You know, it's not there, it's not through that. It's just this has its role. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. And
well, they're usually seen as like shepherds or guides in some way. Like even the Salvia Divinorum, they refer to it as the shepherdess, where it's not the thing that you're doing. It's like the person that you're calling on to help you with something.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So Babaji was known for that. Like he was famous relatively for making the point, as far as like people who were considered gurus or teachers go, for somebody to make statements like he did when it came to psychedelics, because he was surrounded by people who were on psychedelics who brought him to America, and they were all high as fuck all around him, like all throughout the 70s, you know. And like there was even question with Mount Madonna if that would be like a nudist community or not. But the point is that he was known to say like Western man was looking for a way to find God, and he got as close as he could with LSD. So like through materialism, he was looking for a way to find God through materialism. Excuse me, I'm not doing this justice. So it's like, if you could find God through materialism, LSD was as close as you could get to through that kind of trip.
Did you get into Krishnamurti at all?
Oh, absolutely. Krishnamurti was probably the most influential teacher before I met Baba Hari Das. Yeah. Like
Who's
I was a
Christian
teenager and
Murray?
everything changed. Yeah. What's that?
Christian Murray?
Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti.
A new name for me.
He's pretty gangster. He's
He's
like,
the best. He's one of my favorite people that's ever existed. Yeah. Like, yeah. Is it?
I have a feeling that this is not. Am I right here?
Yeah.
Is this?
That's him.
Okay.
Yeah, he just kicked it underneath the tree, right, in California, and he was very he was Hindu, right? But it was very Ayn Rand as well.
He was basically raised by the Theosophical Society, and he had been prophesied to be the world teacher by the Theosophical Society. When he reached, I think it was like the age of 13, he rejected it all. He was like, there is no guru, you're the guru, like this whole thing.
It's very Ayn Rand.
Yeah, he was being set up to be the world teacher, and he went the rest of his life rejecting that role while at the same time paradoxically becoming the world teacher. And so like everything that Crowley was trying to become, Krishnamurti was rejecting. Like it's such a strange, they're like two completely different approaches to the whole thing, But
look at that coincidence. English author Aldous Huxley lived nearby.
Sure.
Met Krishnamurti in 1938, and the two men became close friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is way before the Aldous Huxley published Doors of Perception by like a decade or two.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I always highly recommend Krishnamurti to people. But yeah, this was like I was maybe 18, 19 years old, and I went deep into Krishnamurti's stuff, and it's important.
Yeah. Did you ever get into even though like I know things get kind of sus when we look into these different people, but Alan Watts is the book. Have you ever read that?
I've read quite a bit of Alan Watts. Have I read the book? What is the book? The book?
It's the Taboo of You. It's a fun read. It's easy.
Is it like poetic type stuff, kind of?
It's very Zen, poetic.
Yeah, Zen poetry. I think I've read that.
It's really
like
fun.
Long ago.
Yeah, that one I like it. You got the little Vesica Pisces.
Yeah, I was good friends with a guy named James Mazio. He was also a client. I stretched canvases for him. He was he when he did LSD for the first time, it was with Alan Watts. So like I actually my boss has like all these recordings that we did with James Mazio where he just shared all these incredible fucking stories. He was the original light guy for the Velvet Underground. Like the original light guy. So he was like one of the early pioneers in that like oil projection stuff. He was really good friends throughout his whole life with Neil Young. And so like he did the what is it called? I don't want to say the drink Zuma album cover for Neil Young. But yeah, he had this whole story about how what had happened. He lived with Osley, who was the sound engineer for the Grateful Dead. And like one day, like Osley had taken everything out of his fridge and had like put in like shelves of pink vials of LSD 25, like filling the whole fridge. And he had like $100 on the table and was like, hey, sorry, I needed to use the fridge. And then James Mazio was in the Navy. And one of his commanding officers, like, I don't know if that's the word for what his actual position was, but it was like one of the superiors had said, hey, I heard a lot about the hippies are doing this thing that I'm interested in. It's called LSD. You seem like maybe the person I should talk to if I was going to talk to anybody about it. And they were like at sea. And Mazio got all freaked out because he thought he was going to get in trouble or something. He didn't know. And he was like, yeah. And so he's like, well, when would you want to do it? Like he's like, you want to do the thing? When would you? And he was like, I'll do it right, like as soon as possible. And they took a flight. They got picked up from the ship, and they came out that day. And he gave his superior a bunch of LSD 25, and they kicked it together. There's just it's bizarre, dude. I'm not going to do it justice. I have these stories recorded though. I was going to put them online. I feel like James Mazio would have appreciated that. So
Absolutely. Why are these not online already?
I know, because I bug my boss about it every so often. I'm like, I want those recordings, and then I don't follow through because I'm just
Dude,
working.
these could be awesome for like little animatics too, to like, you know, the little animations that people go along with these talks.
I'll get him. He's got like stories that are recorded, like where what was it? Where Keith Moon got punched by Steve McQueen. They were neighbors. And like Keith Moon was like complaining about Steve McQueen's cars being parked in front of his house, and then Steve McQueen just like punched him in the face. It's like
in this article, Keith Moon and Steve McQueen were once neighbors from hell.
Right. Yeah. No, he was there he lived with one. I think he lived with Keith Moon for a while. But yeah, just all these stories for days. Yeah.
The funny story of the JFK and Frank Sinatra, how JFK would visit him. He had a whole helicopter pad for him to visit. And then JFK is like, I can't visit you anymore. Too much mafia connections. I'm the president now.
Of course.
And like, he was so mad, Frank Sinatra, that he bashed the entire helipad with like a hammer or something.
Well, it was his high hopes. He helped him get elected. And then they felt really betrayed when he didn't really go with the program, because they were like, your dad was a bootlegger. They thought he would be completely on board for everything, and he wasn't. This also relates to Rosemary's Baby, you know, because Mia Farrow, when she got pregnant during the filming of Rosemary's Baby, she found out she was pregnant. There's a scene where she's crying. She's really crying in real life because she found out she's pregnant. She didn't know if it was Woody Allen's or Frank Sinatra's child. And Tracy Twyman, shortly before she died, was theorizing that the line at the end, I guess it's not in the book, I'd have to check, but where it's saying his eyes, what did you do to its eyes, you know, with the child is born and she's freaking out, that was a reference to Blue Eyes of Frank Sinatra, because when her child was born, they know who the father was. Because understand, like, he filed for divorce the day and year that the impregnation scene was shot. So like that was like he was like, if you do this, that's it. Being associated with Catholicism, you know, with the Italians, like if he was to have his wife in a movie where she has the devil's baby, like, and he wanted her to be in this other really shitty movie that she wasn't going to do, and like she's, you know, is like, and then it explains a lot of what followed with Polanski, because Polanski then became an enemy of the mob. So like, and if they're going to take the whole thing out, it wasn't going to be on Mia necessarily, it would be on him. So like, because he was the one who made it all possible, you know. So yeah,
and there's a connection to John Lennon a little bit, I think, with this. They filmed
huge connection. Well, she was just with the Beatles right before the filming of this movie in India with Maharishi. So like, and you'll see references to it in the movie, like where it's like the Yamaha commercial that Cassavetes is in, and it'll just say Maha, which is weird in terms of Kennedy. You know what I'm saying? But
right, Maha, make America healthy again.
Right. But I've been wanting to take a screenshot of that when that happens in that movie, because that's funny. But that was why they cut it like that, was in reference, because so that song, the second song on the White Album, that's called Dear Prudence, that's for Prudence Farrow, who was Mia Farrow's sister. So so that she had just gotten back from India when they're shooting this movie. So there's that connection, and there's also the obvious one that John Lennon was killed in front of the Dakota where Rosemary's Baby was supposed to be filmed in. So the externals of the Dakota were used for Rosemary's Baby, even though the apartments themselves were actually somewhere else. But
I went down that deep dive on the Dakota building, you know, that where John Lennon was assassinated in front of the Dakota, right?
Right, on December 8th, 1980, and that's a Catholic holiday known as the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, and that movie is a qliphothic version of the Immaculate Conception.
That's when Leave the World Behind 128-12-8 was released. That's when the Doors guy was born as well. That's like
Jim Morrison. That's my birthday, by the way. But yeah,
128-12-8.
Yeah, 81. So I was born a year to the day after John Lennon's death. Yeah.
You're Sagittarius?
Yeah.
Your birthday's coming up.
It's true. Yeah.
I know, because my mom's birthday is in December.
I gotta pull up too every time that Rosemary's Baby in the Dakota building comes up. is that the seventh victim from 1943 also arguably takes place in a building that would have been the Dakota building, although this one was far more fictionalized in the 40s. They weren't trying to do these like direct nods, but the one of the guys that wrote this was the research assistant to Aldous Huxley, this DeWitt Bodine. He was right. Look at this. Bodine worked as a research assistant to Aldous Huxley, and in his research for the Seventh Victim movie, he actually ended up going to an underground cult of devil worshippers in Greenwich Village. This is the actual plot of the movie, but this is what DeWitt Bodine, Aldous Huxley's research assistant, what he actually did. He actually went to Greenwich Village and met with devil worshippers in the late 1930s. I think it was in like 1938.
What does it say right there with the cat people right there, 1942? It's a prequel.
So this the seventh victim was basically, it says, basing a story on a satanic society meeting he attended in New York City. This is the real one, and set it as a prequel to Cat People. So technically, the seventh victim, even though it comes out after the Cat People, it's supposed to be the prequel to Cat People. So first you start and you meet this satanic coven, and then the Cat People represents, like, I guess, like an extension of what they're doing.
Right, but then David Bowie did the soundtrack to the remake of Cat People. And so, and you know, David Bowie, there's three main targets for Mark David Chapman when he killed John Lennon. John Lennon was one of them. The other one was David Bowie, and the other one was Johnny Carson, which is weird with the Shining thing, because the Shining the book is named after Instant Karma from John Lennon, of We All Shine On. So he says it's in the very beginning of the book where he dedicates the song to his son named Joe King. I think it's funny that Stephen King named his son Joe, because it's like he's joking. Like, do I look like I'm joking? You know, it's like the Batman. You know, so but yeah. So
you should have named him Fa.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, we all shine on. So it's the basis of The Shining, is that's how it goes at the end. You know, he's literally it's like a whole dark play on that. You know, so that's freaking weird. So The Shining came out, I forget how many months before John Lennon was killed, but the most famous line in The Shining, I think most people would argue, is "Here's Johnny." You know, Johnny is Jack. You know, Jack and Johnny. Like, it's weird. I was just having a trip out with Will yesterday on the Karate Kid and Hot Tub Time Machine. And Trump and the squirrel and all of the stuff, squirrel on the play when it throws off the game, and then it was the squirrel that was euthanized like a week before the election, and how those connected, and then the squirrel ran across the stage before Kamala's concession speech and stuff, and how this, you know, he says in Hot Tub Time Machine that's a magic squirrel, and the guy in that scene who makes the bet with the character Lou, who's dead through the whole movie, who kills himself at the beginning, he was Johnny in the original Karate Kid. But I was like, oh shit, it's Daniel's son and Johnny. Johnny is Jack. It's a surname. So I was like, and then I was like, and Daniel's son is Danny. So it's like Danny and Jack, Daniel's son and Johnny. And then you're like, who's that whole thing of like, so the director of Hot Tub Time Machine was the writer of Hot Tub Time Machine was the writer of Cobra Kai. So they they superimposed the freaking Karate Kid into that, and these guys have had like all these discussions around that viral YouTube video about who's the bad guy in the Karate Kid. Is it Johnny, or is it, you know, like, because you'd think that it's Johnny, but actually everything is
they cover that in the very first episode of Cobra Kai. I love that. I love it how they embrace the internet conspiracy theory, right, and then integrate it as if that had been the truth all along. I love that.
So you get it. So that's Trump, right? So you're like, is the guy really that bad? Like, is he like, who's really the bad? Like, who is the protagonist, and who's the whatever? Like, that is what that speaks to. And so that's kind of the conundrum that people are like struggling with, you know, like, because he's been so demonized, and like that's how we perceive Johnny. Like, Johnny is just, we assume he's got all the character traits. He looks like Hitler Youth, so we just have to, you know, relate to him how we do. So, but then you go into the details and you're like, wait a minute here, who's who right now? So
does that mean sweep the leg was actually a reference to goose stepping?
Maybe. I didn't think of that. But yeah, and then the crane, you know, but that's a whole crazy trip. I'm sorry to go there, but I was thinking about Johnny and Danny, Daniel's son, and then Jack and Danny and Us, the movie Us from Jordan Peele. So that is the symbolic sequel of The Shining, like overtly, just like he played on A Clockwork Orange and Get Out with the lid lock, so to speak, that he's there with the TV and that whole thing. So like he did that with Us. But with Us, which by the way is filmed in Santa Cruz, he's got Jack Nicholson's grandson in that movie in a small part. And if you look at the credits at the end, he's credited as Danny/Tony. And so Tony is in the back of his throat. It's like, Red Rum. And that's why in Us, we're Americans, like the way that they speak in Us, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a shadow. And so they're both plays on Jung stuff. So Jung's Red Book, like, and beyond, and the symbolism of the shadow. So like, that's the calling the shadow in Us is Tony of Duke Nicholson. And so, yeah, you get where I'm going with that.
It's a great film, Us.
Yeah. If you're trying to analyze that, it does the same thing that The Shining does, where if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint, it actually falls apart. Like it doesn't actually work, but it works.
So why are they using
well with symbolism
on it? Do you think there's how Got 5 on it is like they used that, but they mixed, it was like a remake of it where it was scary, and then that was like the viral sound that everyone used for conspiracy videos. It was the Us Got 5 on it sound.
I got 5 on it. It could be a pentagram reference. I don't know. But you were just looking at the Lana Del Rey album, Norman fucking Rockwell right there. So the fans of Lana Del Rey were pissed over this cover because they're finicky like that, because she's always by herself in her covers up until this point. And then Duke Nicholson is there with her on a boat. Why is she on a boat? So this album pairs perfectly with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's freaking ridiculous. And so where was Polanski when he found out that Sharon was killed? He was scouting locations for Day of the Dolphin, which we were just talking about.
Oh, he did Day of the Dolphin?
So he was set to do Day of the Dolphin, and then he found out his wife was murdered by mutants. So he had to freaking call the trip short. I don't know why you'd scout locations at sea. That is such the weirdest, I don't know what the hell. But this movie is a play on like the Manchurian Candidate, but instead of them using the MK Ultra in the Queen of Hearts to get the guy to shoot the president, they're going to kill the president using a dolphin.
Yeah, so that's the MK Ultra dolphin. That's an Illuminati dolphin.
Right. So this was set to be a Polanski film, and then he handed it over to who he handed it over to because of that. So so she's at sea. He's got throughout his films, like you'll see, like even so when he was on trial for the rape of Samantha Geimer, the judge, this is so insane. The judge literally said, like, I watched your movies. I watched a bunch of your movies before you showed up here. And I know, and so the judge was acknowledging a synchronicity. He goes, I couldn't help but notice that you have this water theme. Your first movie's knife in the water. It's water, water, water. Then I can't help but notice that this happened in a hot tub. And it was like, the judge was like, is that like, you're like, so
he was on a synchro-mystic trip, right?
Dude, I just talked to John Cleese about this the other night. So like I went to go see John Cleese do like a speaking performance
Monty Python?
Yeah, dude. I went up, there was like 5 people that got to talk to him. They opened up the mic. I ran to get to the microphone. So like I bolted to talk to him. And everybody else he talked to, like, he freaking insulted. Like it was like there's only like 5 of us, and I just straight up I was like, hey, I know about that you wanted to do this show called Canceled, and I was looking forward to it for like a year or longer, and then I saw that you had a show on GBN in the UK that you interview people who had been canceled, people from America and people from elsewhere, like Rob Schneider and all these different people. And I was like, and then I saw that, you did this movie last year with Polanski called The Palace. And so I asked John Cleese the other night, I was like, so like, did you help write your part in that? Cause like, I'll spoil it for you. He's dead through 3/4 of the film, but they're moving him around like Weekend at Bernie's style. And I was like, was that like you? Like, what happened there? Like, and he told, and so John Cleese just went on for like 10 to 15 minutes explaining to this large crowd about how it is that he, like, what his interest was in working with Polanski. And like, he gave his whole story about his parents being killed in Auschwitz around the story of Samantha Geimer. So like, I had a kind of a thing on Twitter with Samantha Geimer for a while, like his victim, like she referred to herself as a bad victim and would call people out on all the disinfo that people were spreading around what actually took, not just what took place, but like in the situation itself, but like beyond. Like, that was Jack Nicholson's house where that happened. Like, he had a direct tunnel to the Playboy Mansion from that house. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
crazy.
Yeah, like everything about it, like there's indication. So with Samantha Geimer, like initially, like when I first started
Nicholson's house had a tunnel to the Playboy Mansion.
Yes, absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Not just him, multiple celebrities
And,
in that area.
Warren
That's
Beatty.
That's what's going on with the Diddy tunnel, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if that one actually connects, where that connects to. I'm curious about that.
I don't mean to interrupt. I didn't.
No, you're not. No, I'm curious. And
Here's
that's very relatable to all this. So
actually, this is a diagram of Warren Beatty's house. And here is a golf course, and then you can see this tunnel that connects directly from his house to the Hugh Hefner mansion over here on the right.
Right.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally. And so this is the thing, is that so with Samantha Geimer, like I got a follow from her, and then I had I was very grateful for any back and forth that I could have with her on Twitter. You know, she left when Elon Musk bought it, whatever. But like for a while, like she would do a thing where she would call people out in a really cool way. And like they would be insulting her, on behalf of the victim, not knowing that they were talking to the victim. So like she would be saying something to them that they didn't know, and they'd be like, "Screw you, what do you know?" And they're talking about her. So like her lived experience. So it's just freaking nuts. But I responded to something from her, and I was like, I think that freaking parents are pimping out their children through casting agencies, which are doubling as prostitution rings for parents who want their kids to make it in Hollywood. And so I got like a like and a follow when I said that. And I was like, wait, is it like, if that were true, she wouldn't say that. I read a good portion of her book called The Girl, where the cover of the book is a photo that Polanski took that day that they wouldn't show on the news. They kept on showing photos of her from a couple of years before. They didn't want to show what she looked like at that time, for obvious reasons when you see the photo, so she wanted that to be the cover of her book, and so like, her whole thing is that he obviously there's this
is the photo, I believe.
Yeah, very funny. Meet Samantha. If you look up Samantha Geimer, The Girl, you can see it. But yeah,
we got 2 new subs to Illuminati comic.
Let's show this up. Yeah, thank you guys for backing this Illuminati comic. We are so close to 475 backers for the night.
You need more?
So what was the question?
You need 3 more.
We need 3 more. We'll wait to 475. 3 more. It's so easy to do. You just go down here, pick one of the rewards, and then just click it. I can't do it because I'm logged in and I'm the one that's running it. It says I can't back my own project, but you can back our project. And before I forget, one of the other things that we've been doing on these nightlies in celebration of the Illuminati comic is a little segment called Monkey Watch. Are you familiar with Monkey Watch, David?
No, I'm prepared to be, though.
Get ready.
Monkey Watch! Monkey Watch! How many monkeys have we found? Monkey Watch! It's Monkey Watch! Monkey Watch!
All right, I have been covering this 43 monkeys that escaped. Too bad it wasn't 42. That would have worked out even better. But the 43 monkeys that escaped in Tennessee, as you can see from the little animatic and from Chan dancing violently, that only 4 monkeys still are missing. They found the rest of them. However, this exact same lab is now in the news again after this past weekend. Reading that Yamasi monkeys allegedly slowly roasted alive. The report of 18, some of these say up to 20 deaths. And this happened just a few days ago. Here's a quote directly from the Bluffton Today. It says, Several animals died after a heater-related accident during cold weather over the weekend, and the Department of Agriculture is now investigating. And it says,
it was like some zombie thing. They would turn to zombies and they flamethrowed them.
so that actually is one of the quotes that I got here. It's a wild quote that actually, if I took it out of context, which I won't, but if I took it out of context, it would sound crazy. Alpha Genesis has blood on its hands. And this is PETA. So you got to have, I mean, it's PETA saying this. So they would say this to Doenut as well, just holding.
Throw blood on everybody. Yeah.
Like, Doenut, you've got blood on your hands now. You can't have blood on your hands. But calling the center a notorious monkey dealer guilty of sheer negligence, which on previous episodes, we have actually shown that the sheer negligence is accurate. There was a whistleblower that came out with all like 20 or 30 different reports just from the years 2021 and 2022 when they were working there. So this is nothing new. Here's the actual speculative report. A diesel heater may have malfunctioned at the facility on Friday night. There were no alarms, no alerts, and 20 long-tailed monkeys were likely endured agonizing deaths, slowly roasted alive. So this is the exact same place. And look at this quote. This is the quote that I didn't want to take completely out of context. This is no accident. So I don't know if that conjures up someone went in there with a flamethrower and they were just like, let's get these monkeys out of here. But I think it's more of a reference that this pattern has been well documented for more than 4 years now, that this particular facility kind of shoots from the hip a little bit. They kind of are playing like Alec Baldwin with the way that they run this facility. And it could have been prevented, I guess, a lot earlier on. And there was another report, the exact same one, but this one was says that 22 deaths at this fuel. So I don't know, like one article says 18, one says 20, one says 22. Just like originally the reports were saying that they only housed a couple thousand monkeys, but really it's close to 10,000 monkeys.
Yeah, dude.
They also own this Monkey Island place. And Monkey Island has, I think, 3,500 monkeys. They've got 2 different facilities in the U.S. One of them is in Yamasee, and there's one in another county. So collectively, they are the biggest research monkey dealer in the United States. And it says right here, this was no accident. So I don't know.
Project X based on a true story?
I mean, I would have to assume so, because there's nothing in that movie that seems particularly
it's inspired by a true story, I think. I forget if that's the case. But so okay, did we talk about this on Think Tank? I can't remember. The thing with monkey shines. So you know about monkey shine?
I've seen it, the horror movie, right?
Right. So you know that monkey shines. What was it? That was so there's. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I remember that was super scary at Blockbuster.
Dude, there's something happening with this. This is a little complex. Let me see if I can lay this out here. So there's an old film, one of the oldest films ever. That's like a little short thing when we first like made the freaking movie camera, and we were like, it was that was like called Monkey Shine. So if you type in like Monkey Shine film, like old silent film, maybe
Monkey Paw.
I think it's called Monkey Shine.
Oh no, but the us is Monkey Paw. So there's like a monkey connection.
Oh sure. Oh totally. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. So this is the thing. So there's Nope, which is the other Jordan Peele movie, right? So he did Get Out, he did Us, and he did Nope. And in Nope, you had that monkey kills all those people.
You got the crazy monkey, yeah.
Right. So this connects to in that movie, the thing with this Stanford, the guy who started Stanford University and all that. So the reason why it's actually my initials, a DCP. It's where you get 24 frames per second. Became the standard. That comes from that bet that he had made. Does a horse's hooves touch the ground at the same time while it's running? So in order to determine that bet, they figured out that 24 frames per second was the best that they could do to determine to get a view of it. And so
that's my favorite look on a camera.
They're talking about that footage, but the footage before then of from that bet was actually if we could find it, it's called Monkey Shine. And but when Monkey Shines came out, some people were confused because Stephen King had written a short story. I believe shortly before then, I have to check the dates, of a monkey movie that had the monkey with the symbols thing. So they were like relating to that, and they thought that this was a Stephen King movie, Monkey Shines, even though it had nothing to do with Stephen King. But like right now, Jordan Peele is producing. I believe he's producing. I have to check this stuff, but he's involved with the project for the Stephen King movie that was the short story that people thought Monkey Shines was. And so it's crazy that Jordan Peele, who did Nope with the monkey, combined with the thing of the early film, that the other film, the other early
Monkey Man.
What's that?
Monkey Man? No.
Oh no, that's another Jordan Peele thing that he was involved with.
He produced
Jordan
that
Peele's
one,
also
too.
involved with this other monkey movie from Stephen King. Check it out. So yeah.
And
No,
then the Hanuman monkey statue that was built, the Hanuman that Obama carries with him, is connected to a squirrel as well. I don't know if you know that, but we uncovered how like all the paintings of Hanuman, there's a squirrel up by his foot, like a peanut.
Oh, it's a rat. Or you don't Ganesh. Ganesh
Hanuman,
has the rat by his foot.
The monkey. The Hanuman?
Hanuman also, because I know that Ganesh is known to have that rat there by him.
It probably is. You know what? We could just be tripping. You know what I mean? We were looking at pictures on a couple shows ago during this.
Hanuman will be pictured with Ganesh. That could be what's happening.
That's
but
probably what it was. Yeah.
But no, Hanuman's related from the Ramayana. But no,
We
there's
just be looking at a bunch of crazy stuff.
Jordan Peele's, his company is Monkey Paw. Thank you. Yeah, this is the thing.
And
There's
monkey paw is like part of the big like voodoo ritual. Right?
Yeah, you make wishes and then it's not what you wanted it to be. It's just like Bedazzled with where you make a deal with the devil and then you think you're getting the thing and then but there's some flaw and the flaw just becomes too much and you're like, I don't want this actually,
Yeah.
That's the nature of the thing. Yeah, there's a great Simpsons episode with the monkey paw for one of their Treehouse of Horrors or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's
It was
also
Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah.
there's also a It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode with the monkey paw as well.
Oh yeah, they built this giant. Yeah, totally.
This was less than a year ago.
The remover of obstacles, I believe. But yeah, my favorite story with Hanuman in the Ramayana is when he's in this city and they set his tail on fire to stop him, and he decides to run around the whole city and set the whole city on fire using his tail before he puts it out. So it's just it's like martial arts, it's yield to overcome. He's like, oh, you're gonna set me on fire? I'll burn all you with it, and then I'll yeah. But yeah, it's great.
It's like the reverse of a Paul Revere story.
Yeah. But no, I was talking about the squirrel thing. Squirrel stuff things have been coming up with the squirrels a lot lately. Squirrel's a major sync resonator right now.
Since Peanut or predating Peanut?
Well, I was tripping out already on what is the significance of the squirrel in Hot Tub Time Machine for a long time. So, because the squirrels are paramount in the movie, like they're even in the movie poster, they show you that squirrel because Lou kills himself at the beginning. You guys have seen Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, but when it was in theaters, so it was a long time ago.
I don't remember the name of that actor, but there's the guy just trying to kill himself in his garage with the exhaust, and then he does kill himself. That whole movie is his death trip, and when they show up at the lodge, they reference The Shining directly. They're like, oh, there it is. If you look at that squirrel right there, and it's got the Chernobyl drink or whatever. It might be hard to zoom in on it.
Oh, there's the squirrel. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's this divided by the hot tub. And so because with radiation, you boil the water. That's basically what a power plant is, right? So it's Chernobyl is the drink, and which is wormwood. It's a freaking Book of Revelations when wormwood will fall from the sky. That's what Chernobyl means. And so with the vodka and then the squirrel. So when immediately after, the next thing you see after we're looking at Lou trying to kill himself in his garage is a squirrel on a television set, and then it backs up and it describes a humiliation ritual on the TV. Like that's the words that they're using. And then you see John Cusack. And so that, like, at that point, Lou is dead, and then he's dead for the rest of the movie. And it's just like The Shining, where as explained by Kubrick as a Jack's evil reincarnation cycle. So now Lou felt isolated from his friends, so he wants to bring his friends together or whatever. It's like it's a bet, and then they even have the bear from The Shining gets in the hot tub with them, like in that scene. Like it's just fully
Oh, weird.
yeah. So then you have the bet made with Johnny from Karate Kid, which is a play on Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2, having the Gray's Almanac to predict the future. So the character Lou is like, oh, he's actually not such a bad guy after all. After the bet doesn't work out and he loses because a squirrel runs out on the field and fucks the whole thing up, and they say squirrel on the play, and so then he's like. He tells him, he's like, oh, well, I just told him a bunch of sporting events in the future that he can make money off of. So like he basically makes Johnny from the Karate Kid into Biff from Back to the Future 2 in Hot Tub Time Machine. So like it's a crazy sync resonator, but you can see that it's overtly intentional because even Johnny's girlfriend in Hot Tub Time Machine is the girl from Cobra Kai. I want to say Kubrick Kai, but it's Cobra Kai, excuse me. But yeah, pretty nuts.
Have you seen the new Trump movie, The Apprentice?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh, it's gangsta.
Is it good?
Yeah. If you like,
it's phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal.
Okay.
If you like,
okay, I'll watch it.
Casino or The Goodfellas, it's very similar to it.
A lot of people go into it thinking that it's just a movie that like slams Trump and embraces all, and it is, but it's also done so well the way that they do it.
Yeah,
that's how I felt about the Funny or Die thing, but I didn't watch it for the longest time with sound. I just seen it with Roger Waters until relatively recently, actually. But it's got Alf, and it's like, and it's got what's his name, Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd. It comes back from the future, and I don't know if you've seen it, but like he shows up and he tells him, what's going to happen and everything with him being president or whatever. What's that? It's a Funny or Die movie called The Art of the Deal.
Oh,
yeah,
I did.
And Johnny Depp plays him.
Depp, right? Yeah, Johnny Depp. Yeah, so you already know it's a cult. Oh, look, right. Alf.
So
Alf
this syncs with Roger Waters. Is this the life we really want? Which you'd treat as like, oh, this is just a Trump bashing thing, but it has levels to it. It has points of reflection. So it's pretty good.
This goes into it's a good. You gotta check out the movie. It'd probably be a cool sync movie because the way it starts is like punk rock, very like the movie Pie, quick cut, and then it moves into like Trump turning into like this transhuman kind of guy in the 90s before The Art of the Deal. So you kind of see this this change in him. It's so good. It's so well done.
Yeah, what people don't realize about the scapegoatism, like that's a big part of the Golden Bough is the scapegoat, and that's actually something communicated in Judaism where they would have you'd have two goats. No one seemed to take this ritual seriously because they don't have like personal salvation and sin. Sin is collective. We all have to deal with each other's sins. We're all effective kind of bodhisattva in that way in terms of what is liberation. Like we're all liberated together. What's the point? And that includes humanity just beyond the Jews, which is a common misconception that people have because they take certain parts of certain things and treat it to represent it all. It's complicated. But anyway, the scapegoat, it wasn't until Christianity that you had this notion of the innocent scapegoat. You know what I mean? Like when you scapegoat somebody, it wasn't like, oh, they did nothing wrong. It's like Jesus was as innocent as he could be. He was a lamb of God, and he was sacrificed and was scapegoated. But the tradition anthropologically, when you go back, was always like, he's a person, like they do whatever. Like when it comes to the king kill ritual, it's like this was a means to prevent corruption from going unchecked. That they knew that there was inevitably going to be a certain amount of corruption because that's human nature. So they had these kind of rituals in place to like circumvent that, it's like to curtail it or whatever. You're just trimming it back a bit. You can't stop it. You just have to deal with it. So I don't know. I think it's just fascinating to me because Trump, who is more scapegoated than Trump? Like I'm seeing the same thing with Kennedy. It's just crazy how much like because the way I would explain it to people, like for 8 months, I was tabling for Kennedy at a farmer's market until this election, and I would just be like, look, like suppose Kennedy didn't exist. if you were in agreement that there's this rotating door between corporations and regulatory agencies that are supposed to regulate those corporations, and how corrupt all of that is, like I'm like in pharmaceuticals and all of these things, I'm like, and the war machine, I'm like, if somebody was to come along, like Kennedy aside, if somebody had a cohesive plan for how to attack that and do something about it, how do you think the networks and everything and all the politicians and everything that's so corrupted would respond to that when those networks are sponsored by those very same corporations? Do you think that maybe they would look for anything that they could possibly use to use as slander and to make somebody appear as crazy and insane as possible for pointing out that corruption, you know? So I'm like, you know, think what you want to, but just, you know, about this particular person, but consider what would happen if somebody did that, just realistically, you know? So that's what I see. And I think Trump was used as a Pied Piper candidate, admittedly so. In the WikiLeaks, you can see it in Podesta's email when he outlines his strategy for the 2016 election. This is my favorite WikiLeak, is when he just explains that we're going to use Trump. He has other proposals, including Ted Cruz, but he's like, we're going to use somebody, direct the media to basically scapegoat them, but at the same time substantiate them as a viable candidate. And this isn't the only time that the DNC has done this. They've also Democrats have also done this with, I believe, governors and stuff. There's instances where they will paint somebody, they want somebody as extreme as possible, and it's a gamble so that they can just keep pointing at them and going, look how bad they are. So they're taking this kind of lesser of the two evils thing to the extreme so that they can make their candidate look good. They can, you know, put lipstick on a turd by pointing out how awful this other person is. But we've gotten to a point where it's like the American public's like, okay, yeah, even if he is bad, he's not as bad as the thing that you're trying to use him against. Like, people don't even have to know necessarily that this was the strategy that they had in mind. Like, you can still react to it and be like, what the fuck are you trying to do to us? You know, like, because you'll just take, then if you wonder like where this sensationalism comes from, you know, it's this was their plan. Just like with Bernie, it was to use him as a sheepdog. You know, like, this is a trip that I've been on. I explain this to people, and it's amazing like how few people like are even aware of like what these terms even mean, of like a Pied Piper or a sheepdog. So it's crazy. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, though. That's the thing. You know, you're like, oh yeah, obviously Trump's not perfect. He's their choice. He's who they wanted to run against. They didn't, and wanted to get rid of any other third party option, you know, like that would actually be appealing to the public. You know, they want the only other option to be somebody that they can just keep slamming, you know, and go, they're insane, you know.
No.
Yeah.
Could the relation to Trump and his obsession with gold, is there like a Golden Bough connection there?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't, I don't know if you can find it anymore, but it used to be you could go to this website that would give you a tour of his penthouse suite at the Trump Tower, and Apollo was everywhere in the whole room. You can count the Apollos, there's like 50 of them. That's the sun. It's gold. He's got this whole kind of like resonance with this whole thing. Yeah, that's every part of this. Even the guy who climbed up the Trump Tower with the suction cups, he made it 21 stories. He was playing the fool. There's 22 arcana. He's like an actual expression of the tarot tableau playing out. Do you remember that when that guy climbed the Trump Tower with suction cups? You know what I'm talking about?
Dressed as Spider-Man or something, or am I adding that on?
He wasn't actually dressed as Spider-Man, no. But he wanted. His only explanation was that he wanted to meet Trump.
The Devil's Advocate was filmed there, I think, too.
Oh, is that right? It looks like it, doesn't it? That's pretty crazy. Yeah. So like, no, and that guy, I forget what his name is, but the kid who freaking climbed the Trump Tower 21 stories, like the symbolism of that is as over the top as Philip Petit putting that wire between the two towers for me. I'm like, he's the fool. It's so much better that he not even know the symbolism of what he is doing by doing that, you know, of having. Yeah, it's the nature of the fool. It has to be somebody from the lower classes. Yeah, look at this guy. He's just like, and then he's so oblivious after they're like, why did you do this? He's like, I just wanted to talk to him.
It's me, Mario.
It's me.
That's what Mario does, right? Like,
I remember in a Nintendo 64 version of it, right? Is that what it was? Yeah.
You'd be climbing on the where the ghosts are, like when he's underground. That's what that kind of looks like.
Yeah.
You know how they climb on that gate and then they go on the different sides?
Right. No, I'm saying like this is the same symbolism applies because you have Leo. Like you're talking about gold. Is there a connection like with the Golden Bough? Yeah, dude. The sun, the gold, the strength card in tarot corresponds to Leo. That's the pathway between Chesed and Gevurah. That's the top of the terrestrial pillars before you get to the supernal triad. And there's that that gulf in between. This is how Rosemary's Baby connects with 2001: A Space Odyssey, because Rosemary's Baby, they're the same length, by the way. If you start Rosemary's Baby at the very intro to when the fade in of the dawn of man, after the also spake Zarathustra from Nietzsche, like after dun 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 dun, and it does the fade in. It'll make it so that if you start the movie there, it'll be like written and directed by Stanley Kubrick at the same time that it's like directed by Roman Polanski. Like there, so 2001: A Space Odyssey, if you add up the gematria for the screen titles, when it says Dawn of Man, Jupiter Mission 18 months later, and Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, if you add up the gematria in English for those titles, it'll total 777. If you treat 18 as 18, because 18 months later. So if you just, that is 18, that works that way. So that's the lightning flash that extends through the Kabbalistic tree. So like, this is so deep. I mean, it's a lot to get into. I think we just hit the 2-hour mark. I don't know how long you guys want to talk here, but I could go on for a while if you want. But yeah.
Did you see Jared Leto climb the Empire State Building?
I did, because I follow him on Twitter for some reason.
Who's Jared Leto?
Seen Fight Club. He's in a lot of stuff, but yeah, he's kind of a cult leader of sorts. I don't know his full deal. I really wish that his band 30 Seconds to Mars was good. Like I want them to be good. I want them, but it's so bad.
I didn't know he was in that because they really promoted that at Tower Records. That was a long time ago.
He was big in My So-Called Life. That's where I originally remembered him coming from.
I don't remember him in Fight Club.
He was the one with the blonde hair, and it's when
that was him.
Edward Norton freaks out, and he's like, "Calm down," and he said, "I just wanted to destroy something beautiful." I think that was the line.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing was Jared Leto's face.
He doesn't even look like him.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned. Why did you mention Tower Records again?
Well, I remember when Tower Records was around in the 90s, they were promoting that band. I didn't know he was part of that band.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I had a good friend that worked for Tower for years, and she got her dismissal letter because Tower went down, right? So Tower collapsed, and her letter, I was looking at it one day, and it was September 11th, I think 2002. And I was like, really? Does it? And it was like Solomon was the guy who signed it. I was like, and there was like the Solomon building at Ground Zero. I was like, is this real? Like, what am I looking at? I was like, you should frame this. But yeah, my friend Baz. And so Empire Records, a lot of that movie is actually based on stories from Tower Records that even like my friend was involved with. So like,
what about Gwar?
Gwar. When I think of Gwar, I'm just thinking of Beavis and Butthead. But yeah, I don't remember.
Well, they were in the movie
that the guy was listening to Gwar, that guy right there with the like the whole premise of the thing where the guy steals the money and goes to Atlantic City, that actually happened, but the guy went to Vegas and he called up my friend and told her what had happened, that he just lost all the money from the safe in Vegas, and she had to go to she told Russ, the guy who founded Tower Records, and she contacted him and he laughed his ass off. And he's like, unlike the movie, he actually did fire him, but he didn't make him pay back the money because he just thought it was so fucking outrageous and funny that he would think to do something like that. So it was like the end of the night. He did. He just took the money and then went to Vegas and then lost it all. It's based on a true story. Yeah.
We got to sign up on the comic.
The thing with the girl who cuts her wrists, in that movie, like that was inspired by a worker who had actually like took out a box cutter and he was throwing a tantrum and he actually slit his wrists in front of customers. There's a more extreme version of it. They didn't want to show that in the movie, but yeah.
I love box cutters. Like they just, look at my kitty cat. Yeah. We just need 2 more. Thank you so much. We almost had that 475. That's why
you get to feed Chan. Big. You're feeding Chan is literally getting treats every time somebody donates. So if you want Chan, unless you want Chan to go to bed hungry, then that's on you guys.
You guys fed Chan pretty damn good.
He's about to pop. But we are coming up on Thanksgiving. Technically, it's Thanksgiving right now for me on the East Coast. So this is
Yeah,
the perfect
happy
time to get
Thanksgiving.
channel nice and plump.
Yes. Yes. We just need 2 more supporters. And then we pass through the goal. The link down below.
Well, should we start wrapping up? We are past the 2-hour mark here. Should we
Sure.
leave?
Yeah,
it
I
with
mean,
the
I
two
feel
on
like
top?
these topics could just go on and on. I got a million things to say, but I think we should do this again if you guys are into it. I mean, I was gonna before we started this talk, I thought I was gonna be going off about Catcher in the Rye stuff because I watched like 5 minutes of your show last night, and I was like, oh, I have something to say to that and this and whatever I saw, and maybe I should watch that first to know what he lays out. But I was going to go off about J.D. Salinger's sequel to Catcher in the Rye called The Last and Best of the Peter Pans and how that relates with The Shining, and like because Wendy was a name that didn't exist before Peter Pan. You know, like there's all kinds of crazy shit to go into. But yeah, and his shrouded military past, and you know, I don't know where he went with it, but yeah.
That's wild. I would love to have you back on and talk more about Peter Pan and Catcher in the Rye and Kubrick
Sure.
and all of the things, man.
Cool. Yeah, it's fun.
How about
Thank
the
you.
chat? Does anyone want David to come back, or do you guys just absolutely hate David and we should never even talk to him again? We'll let the chat decide.
We love David.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Oh man. No, it's always like so many like layers, and like every time I do anything like this, even if it's just our think tanks and there's a particular topic, like I always remember after the fact the things that I left out, because like I mean I brought up Hal Craig for a second, who wrote Waterloo, and I'm like, dude, like he wrote Barry Lyndon according to his obituary from the New York Times, and like IMDb doesn't say that, but his obituary does. Like I found that out after I was like, did this guy, because of the Napoleon thing, I'm like, did Kubrick help write this freaking movie? And then it's like the guy who did write it fucking wrote Barry Lyndon, but they don't tell you that. Like weird stuff, you know? So like there's always these things that like I'm sure there's going to be 50 things that come up in my mind that I'm like, oh yeah, and there's that too and that too. But oh well, that's the way it goes. So maybe another show.
It looks like that David does not the chat does not like David, so unfortunately for you, David, sorry.
Thanks. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to both of you guys. I don't know if you celebrate any of these colonizer holidays like I do.
Yeah.
And our family still believes that Christopher Columbus founded Thanksgiving originally. We don't claim
Christopher Columbus is Jewish, so
there's wasn't that the thing with Columbus, that it's peace and it's the dove, and that Noah sent out the dove to go find the land, and then he went and he found it's so mythological, right? I mean,
is the Thanksgiving dinner kosher? Like just the most plain Jane version with the cranberry sauce and the stuffing and the turkey.
It could be if you wanted it to be, but you have to go to some trouble for that. Yeah, if you really wanted. The thing with that kind of stuff, though, is that it's endless. Like how much
I got that kosher right there. Got that kosher.
Yeah, like if you actually were to apply yourself to be like, I'm going to live like the Orthodox way, like there's no end to how perfect you can strive towards. Like it's just so that's kind of the thing to have in perspective. Like the Jewish people, including my rabbi that I've known that are really like they do the thing, they have to remember that like there's no end to this. Like you could just otherwise you're just going to go straight up completely neurotic, you know. That's why you end up just living that way. It's going to make you a bit it's going to affect you in certain ways, you know. So I can't, I'm not very kosher man at all. So I wish I could be a practicing Jew, but it's too much. And you know what, a lot of the people, when people are freaking out about, you know, the James Shelby Downer and people are talking about the Jewish people out there, like something tells me that the Rothschilds and etc., these I forget, like the Rockefellers aren't even Jewish, it's the Rothschilds, but like I don't think any of those people are practicing, you know what I mean? Like are they like
no, they're not even the most powerful. They've got handlers. No, yeah, so, there's so much evidence that just a big psyop right now of scapegoating Jewish people. Not even institutions. Like when Kanye went to war on the exact day of October 7th, like pretty much
When you said I'm going to go DEFCON 3, we were actually at DEFCON 3, and like it just been announced, like that's where we were at. So
yeah,
you know,
and he did it on people. He didn't do it on institutions. He didn't do it on like the mafia elements or Rothschild. He did a war on Jewish people.
Right.
So it was like me. That's what he was going to war against. And then that goes into the whole scapegoating. And I think it's very interesting how the whole world was locked down and every single government institution bowed down to the UN, bowed down to the real power players of the big farms that are out there. The real power structures, all leading back to Switzerland as well, and just different institutions, different other religious institutions.
Yeah.
And then the world opens up, and then we get this whole psyop. Just let's focus on noticing. That's what everyone is focused on. Look right here. It's obvious to me, but it's not a popular theory. But whatever's popular usually is wrong.
Yeah,
Spitting truth.
Yeah, it's just complicated. We can go deeper into it, but yeah, it's a whole thing. Like you bring up Kanye, and I'm thinking about the Raelian thing where he had like this,
the alien cult,
dude, and like no one talks about that, man. Like when Elon Musk responded to it, he was like, "This is okay," with a picture of him and his chones. And then he's like, "This is not okay." And it was like, and then the media at no point mentioned Raelism. They were like, "Oh, this anti-Semitic symbol." It's like, I knew what that symbol was because I'd used it in collage years before. And I looked into that UFO cult. It's the world's biggest UFO cult. I'm like, oh, he just freaking put up the symbol for Elon Musk's own religion that he ascribes to. And he's like, if you look at the Mr. Rail, the Raelism head, he's made Elon Musk into an honorary member like before that ever happened. And like his whole philosophy, like it explains so much. And what he's trying to do with Africa is the same thing that they did with Israel with the birthright thing. That's their vision of Africa for the future. They've already started setting it up for West Africa. They're going to be moving people over there to do the same kind of apartheid shit, whatever you get. Yeah, it's just, it's a whole.
And if you look at the Olympics, the ceremony, it is the world and it's America, and there's a bridge going to Africa. Like
sure. Oh yeah. It's the richest place of resources in the world, and they cost the least of anywhere. What's that about? Yeah, no, Africa is the future. So yeah. Anyway, thank you guys.
And then when he was
banned, man, this was awesome.
He was banned too with the Raelian thing with 322,000 subscribers. 3,022,000.
Skull and Bones, just to really drive it home. Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, far out.
the 322 thing. See, this is stuff that people don't look at. Is how this goes back to Mithraism and how it's connected to all these people on the mainstream. Candace Owens got baptized at 322 after being fired from the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro on 322. Like,
oh whoa.
Yeah, it's all like symbolic.
Far fucking out, man. All right.
We had a like super active chat tonight. Appreciate all I was trying my best to keep up with it, but then also pay attention to what everyone's saying, and then also pull up screens and stuff. It's a lot of work. I don't know how you do it normally because you've got way more comments that scroll by in yours, but it's not easy work, but we'll keep doing it. We'll keep doing our best.
Thank you for hosting it, Paranoid, because it gave me a break to kick back. And
it is nice being the one that can just kick back and not have to pay attention as much.
This was a fun. Like David held it down, like you put it on. Thank you. Thanks.
This is what you would call a passenger princess, but in like the podcast world.
Yeah, for.
And if anyone made it this far and you want us to keep doing the nightlies or you want David to come back, make sure you give us a like. Give the little thumbs up like to feed the little algorithms so that this goes out to more and more normies the more we do it. So we appreciate that. What you got for us, Doenut? Any parting words?
Please go to the IlluminatiComic.com. Go click the link below. Hit the like button. Go subscribe. Much love. God bless you.
Illuminati comic. Yeah, Illuminati comic. You know you want it. This Illuminati comic.
out the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more. From the 18th century to modern day, we expose it all. That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from Doenut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at IlluminatiComic.com.
Look, you're gonna have to move fast. Conspiracy cards from Paranoid American are here.
Conspiracy cards, flip it, what's the deal? Conspiracy cards with that paranoid seal. I can unwrap the truth in these stacks. Flip one, flip two, get a few of these packs. Flip it up, what's next? Move fake, we flex. Bigfoot in the woods, stay lying, that's facts. MK Ultra, no cap. Every F-51 is a trap. Roswell crash, what's that? They hide the truth, where's that? Conspiracy cards, flip it, what's the deal? Conspiracy cards with that paranoid seal. I can unwrap the truth in these stacks. Flip one, flip two, get a few of these packs.
That's right, Conspiracy Cards from Paranoid American. A set of over 200 cards featuring legendary conspiracy theorists, cult leaders, esoteric secrets, and more. For more details, visit conspiracycards.com today.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my planes, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real, the real, you will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hate, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bombs distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.